You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham, and I wasn't even planning on doing a podcast today, but after last night's game, Lakers-Warriors, unbelievable, such an entertaining game. I love NBA playoff basketball, and last night wasn't exactly a playoff game, but it pretty much was. We were on YouTube, we were on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. Please hit that subscribe button. You can check the description, as always, for the timing at which I hit different segments so you can get the content you want and need. And let's get started. So last night, the Lakers and the Warriors, LeBron and Steph, we've seen these guys face off time and time again in the playoffs. Last night was a little bit different, though. They're at the bottom of the barrel in the Western Conference. Well, quote-unquote bottom of the barrel, right? I've been saying for weeks that the Lakers are still the favorite. We're going to get into that as well. But a little bit different scenario than the NBA Finals. These guys are fighting for their lives just to make it into the playoffs. And boy, did they both ever want it. It was very clear both teams were playing extremely hard. There was no jockeying for position. There was no thinking, we'd rather play the Jazz or we'd rather be the 8. No, these guys, both teams wanted that 7 seed really bad. Fantastic, entertaining game. Steph was Steph. He was fantastic. He shot tremendously. LeBron and AD did not look very good, looked a little rusty, didn't shoot well. The Lakers in general, they just can't shoot well, period. I'm going to talk about that later. But the big story is LeBron's shot. LeBron hits that 3. Shot clock is winding down. There's exactly a minute left in the game. Tie ball game, 100-100. LeBron with a deep kind of logo distance 3 with Steph in his face, or at least rushing at his face. And LeBron drills it to take the 103-100 lead, and there was not another basket or point was scored after that. So that proved to be the game winner. And was it clutch? Yes, of course it was clutch. Was it the same clutch as, say, a free throw when you're down 1 with 2 seconds left? No, not at all. And I want to talk about the difference between that. LeBron is fantastic he's very clutch in the sense, winning in general is clutch, right? Winning an NBA title is clutch. It's not this, there's different levels of clutchness. And LeBron is really, really good when he's ahead at staying ahead. He did have the 3-1 comeback against the Warriors in that finals. I'm not going to take that away from him. But even then, there was the Draymond Green suspension. There was a lot of things that happened. Kyrie hit some big, clutch shots, the clutch shot. So I'm not gonna take it away from LeBron. He can definitely come from behind. He's a champion. He's an all-time great. He's the second greatest player that the league has ever seen. But when it comes to true clutchness, I personally do not feel, and I feel pretty strongly about this, that last night's shot fits in that category. It's kind of like there's just no pressure on that shot. There's no pressure on that shot. And I said this, I had a bunch of people over last night to watch the game, and I said this to everybody. I said, that's the kind of shot I expect LeBron to make. Because there's no pressure there. You're expected to miss it. He had to shoot it. There's zero thought process going into it. The shot clock's winding down. You literally have no choice but to hoist it up there and hope for the best. So there's zero expectations of that ball going in. And when the expectations are really, really low, it's easy to exceed them. It's easy to exceed expectations that are low. So he hit a shot. It was a clutch shot. It was a good shot. I'm not going to say it was lucky because he's capable of making that, but he hits those at like a 25 to 30% clip. LeBron is not some deep fadeaway logo 3-point guy without having time to set his feet and stuff. It was a good looking shot, good form, but you give that shot to LeBron 10 times, he makes 2 or 3 of them. And that happened to be one of those 2 or 3. So to me, great shot by, Steph said it himself. It's a great shot, an all-time great shot by an all-time great player. He's an all-time great player. That's not an all-time great shot. It's a great shot. It's not an all-time great shot. But it kind of reminds me of Tiger Woods, this front-running thing, right? Tiger Woods is the greatest golfer that's ever lived. Tiger Woods has won the second most majors of all time. And he to me, he's the greatest golfer there is, right? But Tiger almost never. In fact, I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive. He might have had 1 come from behind in a major. I think he's had 1 come from behind. But of all his majors, only once has he not gone into Sunday leading. And for those that don't understand golf, you have Thursday, Friday, then they cut a lot of guys that aren't good enough to keep going, and then you have Saturday, Sunday. So each round, you start fresh each day with a new round. And Tiger is consistently leading by Saturday evening going into Sunday night, and he holds that lead on the final day. He rarely comes storming back from behind. In fact, I think I'm nearly positive, I should have looked this up, I didn't, but in only one major has Tiger come from behind on Sunday. So that's a different type of clutch. It's clutch to get the lead and hang on to it, but it's not as clutch as coming from behind. That's how I view LeBron. LeBron has missed more free throws and field goal attempts in the last 18 seasons, which is how long he's been in the league, in the last 10 seconds or less of a close game than any other player by a long shot. He shoots barely 50, 60%, from the line in late in games of close games. And the foul line is all mental. It's all mental. And this is what I'm getting at with LeBron. And again, this is not me hating. For those of you listening, LeBron, you're a LeBron hater. No, I'm not. I just said he's the second greatest basketball player of all time. And I'll keep repeating that to make sure it's drilled into everybody's heads. He's the second greatest player of all time. But a foul shot is it is proof. LeBron can shoot the ball. LeBron can shoot the three decently. He can shoot a jump shot. He can shoot a turnaround. I'm sorry. A foul shot should not be that hard. But mentally, he's a little bit weaker than the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants. He just is. And that's why it shows at the foul line, especially late in games. Even last night, he gets that hard foul. That's another big story from last night. Takes the hard foul from Draymond Green, which, by the way, according to league rules, that absolutely should have been a flagrant. I was very surprised it wasn't. I was glad it wasn't because it was just a good hard foul, which 5+ years ago and all the way back to the beginning of the league, that would never even have been looked at as a flagrant. But these last few seasons, they've changed things. By the current rules, that should have been a flagrant. But I'm glad it wasn't called. You want to see Draymond out there. You want to see LeBron out there healthy. But LeBron goes down, and what's he do? He's clutching the back of his head, the front of his head, his eye, his left knee, his right knee. He couldn't figure out which body part to show us was hurting. It was like, oh, I'm hurt everywhere. He's agonizing in pain. He's writhing in pain on the floor, squirming and twirling, and oh, I'm so hurt, I'm going to die. This guy is like 6'9", 260, pure muscle, most athletic man to ever live. I'm sorry, like that was definitely some acting. Even CJ McCollum, a peer of LeBron James, okay, CJ McCollum on the Blazers, tweeted immediately, like, that world's greatest actor award, or give him an Oscar for this performance, something along those lines. It's like, dude, you're not in that much pain. And what part of you hurts? Does your right knee hurt, or is it your left knee? Is it your eye, or is it the back of your head? Like, what hurts? He was clearly playing up for the cameras, for all of us. I'm hurt. Because he wants an excuse to miss free throws. He wants to be the hero. He wants to have the storyline. He wants to control the narrative, just like I said yesterday on yesterday's podcast. That's what LeBron does. That's what he does. He's the guy that he has to have an excuse, these preemptive excuses for failure. Okay, Steph's the MVP. Steph's the greatest player in the league this year. So if we lose to him, no big deal. It's a premeditated excuse for failure. He sets himself up to have an excuse for failure. And that's exactly what he was doing with that injury last night. Did he get hit in the face? Yes, he did. But if you looked at his eye that whole time, most of the redness and all that was coming from him continuously rubbing it and getting the eye drops poured in it. So he goes to the foul line. He's like squinting, he's like, he's making this. It's like, dude, even the announcer, I can't remember who it was, but was like, yeah, I've done that. I've been there before, where you're squinting, making sure everybody sees you squint so you have an excuse to miss it. They call him out for it, and he was. That's what he does, and so, and then he's at the end of the game, he's saying, oh, I was seeing 3 rims, so I shot for the one in the middle. It's like, bro, are you actually stealing Rocky quotes right now? Is that what you're doing? Remember Rocky? Yeah, I'm seeing 3 of them out there, and then his coach hit the one in the middle. Yeah, hit the one in the middle. That's literally from Rocky. So LeBron now is controlling the narrative so hard that he's stealing lines, stealing quotes from sports hero movies. That's how much LeBron has to control the narrative. He's actually stealing lines from sports hero movies. I saw 3 rims out there. I was literally seeing 3 rims out there. I shot for the one in the middle. Come on, dude. Come on. So you can, and by the way, he missed one of those free throws after getting fouled by Draymond. He missed one of those. And of course, he's, squinting hard, make sure we know. So that's LeBron. LeBron is very clutch in some ways and very not in other ways. And when the eyeballs are on him, when the focus is on him, when his focus has to be on himself, when he has to get into the mental game of what do I do here? How do I do this best? That's where he falters. Shot clock winding down. And it's a quick, easy, middle schooler decision of shoot it or the buzzer sounds. you shoot it. Zero pressure, zero expectations. I'm out at the freaking logo with the shot clock winding down. This is a hoist up prayer. And he made it. Even Steph Curry turned around and looked at him after it went in. And Steph Curry looked at him like you look at the guy at the local pickup game at your local gym who just hit the shot to get his team to 21 to win the game when he hadn't hit one all night. That's how Steph Curry looked at LeBron. Like, for real, bro? Did you just make that? Like, you lucky SOB, right? Like, Steph did not look at him with admiration like, oh, LeBron does it again, man. This guy's just the best. No. Look at the tape. Steph turns around like, for real, dude, that is not your shot. I could give you 10 of those and you'd make 2 or 3. That's how Steph looked at him. And so, anyway, speaking of Steph, I felt like Steph got fouled towards the end of the game. Well, towards the end of the game, the very end of the game, when they're trying now for this last second shot to try and tie it. He couldn't even get the ball. And it's poor Steph. He has no help right now. So Andrew Wiggins played pretty well, but even Kelly Oubre is out. Obviously, Klay Thompson's out, been out all season. But even Kelly Oubre is out. And I hope that we see one more great year from Steph and Klay next year. I don't think they're going to be able to do some real damage in the playoffs, even with Klay Thompson back. I think they'd be a second-round exit probably. But Steph is playing so good right now. And Draymond's hilarious. This guy walks around like he's just a total beast, like a total stud. The dude is like Mr. Triple Single, okay? He can't get, and he scored 2 points last night. 2 freaking points, Draymond Green. Let me pull up his stat line here. This guy struts around and talks like he's just the greatest basketball player that ever lived. And I remember thinking that he used to be, we all were fooled. We all thought he was good. Well, guess what? When KD, Klay, and Steph are on your team, you can look pretty freaking good, right? But when those guys are gone, Draymond is a non-factor. 0 for 5 from the field, 2 points on foul shots, 6 turnovers, and 5 fouls. He had 3 times as many turnovers as he had points. He had 2.5 times as many fouls as he had points, okay? That's what Draymond Green does. He had his 9 rebounds and his 8 assists. He also did have 3 steals and 3 blocks, so he did play pretty well in those categories. I'm not going to take that from him. But, dude, clearly what your team is missing is scoring. The only guy on your team that's a real threat to score is Steph Curry. And you get 2 points, and you're trying to tell us you're an all-star, you're a superstar. You have 3 times as many turnovers as you have points. You have 2.5 times as many fouls as you have points. Come on, dude. Draymond is extremely overrated, and anyway, this is not my favorite guy. Okay, so moving on. And I'm not a Draymond hater. We've talked about when he said he was the greatest defender of all time. That was some real laughable content that the whole sports world had a lot of fun with. But okay, getting back to LeBron and the 3 and the injury. I just want to make sure we got everything there. Okay, so takeaway from last night's game. Lakers won. I knew they would. I did call that one correctly, so I'm only just now meager 1 for 3 on my calls. I didn't even predict the Spurs and the Grizzlies one. I actually just forgot because it just doesn't matter to me. Whoever wins that game is going to either lose to the Warriors tomorrow night or they're going to lose to the Jazz in the first round. They're just kind of an obsolete team. I think you're going to see them lose to the Warriors tomorrow night. I'll be watching, though. Memphis did look pretty good, and Memphis could do something against the Warriors, but I kind of doubt it, especially with it being at Steph's house. I think he'll make sure they at least get into the playoffs, and I think they could give the Jazz some trouble. Jazz fans, Donovan Mitchell was a full participant at practice today, and he will be playing Game 1 on Sunday against whoever it is, most likely the Warriors. But as expected, Donovan Mitchell is back, baby. So the Jazz should be at full strength going into these playoffs. And I am very, very interested to see how they do in their first round against the Warriors, and then especially in that second round against what I'm expecting to be the Clippers. But a takeaway from last night is that the Lakers, they can't shoot, okay? We already knew this, but I learned that even deeper last night. They shot especially poorly last night. But in fact, last night, I've got it pulled up here. Anthony Davis, 10 of 24. LeBron, 7 of 17. That's abnormal. As a team, they shot 32% from 3, 40% from the field. But that's actually not that far off their regular season stats. They are the second best team defensively in points allowed per game, but they are the 21st ranked team in the NBA in three-point shooting percentage. They suck at three-point shooting. They don't have anyone who's a reliable three-point shooter. They are truly, truly lacking a legitimate sharpshooter. And I'm not talking like Steph Curry level or Damian Lillard. It could be some random white dude off the bench, right? It could be a Steve Kerr type, if we go back to Jordan's days. A Kyle Korver, okay? They're missing someone like that. Someone who's just a reliable, hey, when he's on the, Duncan Robinson, when he's on the court, look out. Pay attention to him. He can shoot. This guy can shoot. He can shoot. Shooter when you're playing pickup ball. They're missing that guy. There's no one that you're like, oh, I'm really nervous when Kuzma shoots it. No, you're not. Really nervous when Kentavious Caldwell-Pope shoots it. No, you're not. There's nobody that makes you nervous when they shoot a three on the Lakers, and I think that's going to be a real problem for them. They play big. They've got Andre Drummond. They've got Montrezl Harrell. They've got LeBron James. They've got Anthony Davis. Those are 4 of their key 7 guys. So more than half of their top 7 rotation guys are bigs, really. Trez plays really big. LeBron plays a little bit smaller, but he is just big in general. He's not like a pure shooter. So they're taking a very different approach. They're taking the defensive approach, the bigs approach. It's kind of more of almost like a 90s style ball, honestly, where you don't have a ton of great three-point shooters. You do have a lot of big men you rely on. You do rely on kind of a mid-range and back to the basket, around the basket kind of game. And it's going to be interesting to see what they can do. I'm going to go through and predict all of my – so these are my predictions. And I'll start with the Western Conference. I think that the Jazz will beat the Warriors in 5 games. I think the Warriors will win tomorrow night, and that they will steal one from Utah. But that's it. I think they just get one. So I think the Jazz win in 5. I'm going to say the Clippers will also win in 5 over the Mavericks. And I'll say that the Blazers, so I've been saying the Nuggets, but I've admittedly kind of been wishy-washy back and forth. And the more I think about it, I think about Dame Lillard being clutch. I think about him sending people home in the first round, a couple of years in a row now. I think about the wave goodbye. I think about the Nuggets missing Jamal Murray, who they haven't really missed in the regular season, but I do think that veteran leadership and that experience in the playoffs will be sorely missed. And so I'm going to actually pick the Blazers in 6 over the Nuggets. I think they've just got more experience. They're pretty hot right now, and they're starting to gel like I've expected them to for several weeks with Nurkic back and McCollum back. Obviously, they've got Dame. Norman Powell's assimilating. I don't even know if that's a word. Norman Powell's fitting in better. Norman Powell's fitting in better with the rotation. Melo's playing well. He's a seasoned veteran. I think I'm going to take the Blazers in 6. Then I'll say Lakers in 6 over the Suns. I think it's a good matchup for them. You're looking at the very first playoff series ever for 2 of the Suns' 3 best players in Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. And then Chris Paul does play really well, but he's never even been to a conference finals. I'm sure he'd love nothing more than to beat LeBron and get to that second round. And if they do get to the second round, I would pick the Suns to make it to the Western Conference Finals. This will be both these teams' toughest matchup. The Lakers and the Suns, their toughest matchup is this first round. Their second round matchup will be much easier than than this first round. The Western Conference Finals would be harder than that, but this is harder than the second round at least. But I'll take the Lakers in 6. In the East, I'm going to say the Wizards win tonight over the Pacers. And I'm going to say that the 76ers then go on to beat them in the first round in 5 games. Knicks and Hawks is a very ho-hum series because whoever wins will absolutely lose in the second round. But it's kind of an exciting one because it should be close. But I will say the Knicks, the underdog, I will say the Knicks win in 6. Heat and Bucks is a very good matchup. This is one of the most exciting first round, probably the most exciting first round matchup, well, behind the Lakers and Suns. But this is a very exciting first round matchup. And I'm going to say that I'm the most torn on this one. This was the one I sat and thought about the longest. I'm going to say the Bucks, though, in 7. I think this one goes 7, and I think the Bucks get it done. And then the last matchup would be the Nets and the Celtics, and the Nets are going to sweep the Celtics. The Nets will sweep the Celtics. So that is my prediction. Jazz in 5, Clippers in 5, Blazers in 6, Lakers in 6, 76ers in 5, Knicks in 6, Bucks in 7, Nets go for a sweep. Those are my first round predictions. We will see what happens. And then one last thing to finish up today's podcast with. I've been saying forever that the Lakers would be the favorite to win the West. I've said it over and over and over. I've argued with some people on the YouTube comments about it. And I had a friend, John Heath, shout out to John, good friend of mine, loyal listener to the podcast. He had DM'd me this ESPN BPI thing, which is the Basketball Power Index, saying, hey, look, the Jazz, according to this, have the second best chance to win the championship. And I replied, dude, that's BPI. I promise you when the Vegas odds come out, it'll be different. The Jazz will not be that high and the Lakers will not be that low. Well, the BPI, which again, it is a cool formula, but you can throw it out the window when it comes to the playoffs. It's a very good regular season indicator, I feel like, of who might win a certain game. But the playoffs is a completely different animal. It's a completely different animal. And there's a lot more pressure. Teams are playing a lot harder. It's a 7-game series, so you're playing the same opponent over and over and over again. There's a lot of mid-game adjustments, mid-series adjustments. Coaching plays a far bigger factor. There's just so many different things that come into play. So the BPI had the Nets 1, Jazz 2, Sixers 3, Lakers 4, Bucks 5, Clippers 6, Suns 7, Heat 8, Blazers 9, Nuggets 10. Those are their top 10 teams with best chance to win the NBA Finals. And I immediately disagreed with it. Well, guess what? Last night, as soon as the Lakers officially made the playoffs, the Caesars Sportsbook in Las Vegas released their betting odds, okay? And this is where the money is. Money talks. You want to know the real odds for a team to win a title? Look at Vegas. Look at where the money is. That will tell you everything. And the Nets, of course, are number 1. And, of course, the Lakers are number 2, which I've been saying all season long. Even as the Lakers were looking at being the 7 or 8 seed, I said the second they're in the playoffs, they will be one of the favorites to win the finals. They will be the favorite in the West. I said that. You can go back and listen to the podcast previous. The Lakers are the favorite in the West. It is official. They made the playoffs as the freaking 7 seed, and they are the Vegas betting odds-on favorite to win the conference. That is remarkable. That is showing how much devalued the regular season has gotten. So it's Nets 1, Lakers 2. I'll go through the list because I'm sure everyone's curious. Clippers 3, Jazz 4. And I actually agree with this list. Clippers and Jazz I could flip-flop, but I'm a little biased because I live here and follow the Jazz closer. But I'm also just not a huge believer in the Clippers and their clutch gene, Paul George. I just don't know if I'm there. But they've got Nets, Lakers, Clippers, Jazz, 76ers, Bucks, Suns, Nuggets, Heat, Mavericks, Blazers. So the money is saying that the Blazers, that the Nuggets will beat the Blazers, and that the Bucks will. I had the Bucks over the Heat. So that's what the money's saying. But again, Lakers, odds-on favorite to win the West. We'll see if it happens. I hope it doesn't, and I hope that the Jazz do. That is all the time I have for today. I will probably not be doing a podcast tomorrow, so the next one will be Monday. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Playoffs get started. Go Jazz. I will see you Monday. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STBSportsTake.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are warriors.